Hi guys and welcome to Kazcast episode 25. My guest today is Fran Sands. We just had a awesome conversation and I loved every minute of it. It was so interesting talking to Fran about his boxing days. He was an amateur boxer who boxed over 60 bouts, as well as boxing for his country, and we spoke about his mindset during that time, how much he loved boxing, the challenges that came with it, the methods he used for his training, and the brutal weight cuts that he went through. And then after that, we went on to mainly talk about his career as a coach, and he gave some incredible advice in terms of how to become a good coach, and how he's became a good coach, using growth mindset and generally just educating himself by reading books and listening to podcasts. And he shares some great advice about good practical advice in terms of how he's implemented these methodologies into his everyday life. And by doing this, he's really enhanced his business over the years, which is My Boxing Coach. You can head over to myboxingcoach.com to check out all of Fran's incredible training systems that he's offering, and he's now reaching people worldwide. And check out his YouTube channel. Fantastic advice. I love watching his videos myself. You learn so much. And if you've only got a couple of minutes, he does these excellent 90-second instructional videos that you can check out. And also in this podcast, Fran shared such an amazing story that I felt was so gripping how he told it. It made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And as you'll hear in this podcast, I've said to Fran, this story will become a movie one day. It was such a great story. So yeah, please enjoy this episode. Please share this episode. I really feel that people are going to take a lot from it. Fran's such a cool guy, and it was a real pleasure talking to him. So please enjoy my episode with Fran Sands.
There are no constraints on the human mind. No walls around the human spirit. No barriers to our progress except those we ourselves erect. Make your life a story worth telling.
Hi guys and welcome to Kazcast episode 25. Today on the phone we're speaking with Fran Sands. So Fran, thanks for coming on the podcast, mate. I really appreciate your time.
My 100% pleasure. I think the work you do with your podcast is top drawer. I've really enjoyed listening to some of your stuff, mate. So it's a real pleasure and privilege.
Cool, nice one, mate. So what I wanted to do was to sort of go. Bring you back to the start. So I know you began amateur boxing in 1978 at the young age of 6. So thinking back to that, where was your first boxing club? Was it a local, club down the road from where you live? And has boxing been in your family, or was you sort of the first person to jump on board with the boxing?
Yeah. So I mean, my whole boxing life has been spent around the club that I continue to coach at now, Sefton Amateur Boxing Club. So, 40 years, and it's from my parents' house. It's probably a 10 or 15 minute walk, and I'd love to say it was a choice that I started boxing, but it really wasn't. I mean, my dad basically took myself and my older brother to the boxing club. Now, there's no boxing in the family.
Yeah.
But it's a family. My dad was one of sort of 9. His dad died when he was really young, so he was brought up in sort of post-war, so 1950s Bouts, which is just to the north of Liverpool. A poor area, an area where things were more often than not settled outside the alehouse with a one-on-one.
Okay.
So he kind of had this view that whatever else happened in life, you had to be able to look after yourself. And that was his primary aim. He wanted us to be able to defend ourselves in any given situation. I'm not sure whether he had any particular long-term goals. He always supported me in the boxing, but he was the right type of supporter. My dad, he was very quiet. He wasn't overbearing. So yeah, right from that early age, it was in it. I'll be honest with you, it was probably a bit too young. I certainly wouldn't take a 6-year-old into our boxing club now.
Mm-hmm.
But the 1970s was somewhat of a different time.
Slightly different. And at 6 years old, and those 5 years of training before your first fight at 11. So during those 5 years, can you remember, what you were doing? Do you look back at that and think, that was perhaps a little bit much for you, at that age? Can you remember that sort of first 5 years and how you felt?
Yeah, I think, it was something I enjoyed doing for the large part. Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I mean, getting a youngster at that age, you've really got to try and make it fun. And I guess it was, there was some cool sorts of characters in there, some good older lads to be around. We had some really skilled lads, and yeah, he used to have a laugh. We'd go out he'd send us out on runs.
Yeah.
And we'd just go missing for half an hour, and,
Yeah.
cause mayhem in the local area.
Yeah.
Gang of us, we're all good-natured stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a nice place to be. It was a fairly controlled environment, and yeah, I built some very good relationships. I had a couple of exhibition bouts there, sort of no decision bouts, sort of the age of 9, 10. And yeah, it was a good place to be. I'm glad that I largely stuck it. To be honest with you, I don't think I had much of a choice, because my dad was just like, "No, you're going, and that's it. There's no conversation about this. You're going." So
yeah, and at that age, it's just part of you. It's just part of life. It just becomes so normal for you, I guess, because you spent so much time in there.
Exactly, it's just habit, and you're there, and you go in, and if it can be fun, then that's more the better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was learning, and it was enjoyable.
Cool. So you had your first fight at 11. So you'd had quite a bit of experience already. Such a young kid, and by the time you was 11, did you feel ready to have that first fight? Were you excited, scared, nervous? Can you remember how you felt as a kid going into that first boxing match?
I was very excited. I had no
fear.
No fear at all. Yeah, I mean, we went up there, so my brother boxed. We boxed in a local club here called the Our Ladies of Walsingham Club, and it's a little parochial club. Funny enough, I was in there last week for my mate's dad's funeral, and I sat there sort of reminiscing. But we went up there with my dad and my granddad. I always had a good support network. Our mate as well, his sister, funny enough, was married to John Bailey, a former Everton right back, a really quite famous Everton footballer who won the league title with them. Yeah. And John Bailey was like, he came along as well, so he was having a pint with us. So sort of back in the day, I guess, when football players were less remote than they are now.
Yeah.
And I went in, and I had no fear whatsoever. And that's the only time in my career that I got into a ring without any fear, because every time after that, it was on a spectrum of, I always had to battle to control the level of fear I was experiencing before a fight. And a lot of guys, I won't say all boxers, but a lot of guys, we put a brave face on it, and, it's all tough and hard exterior, but it's a real conundrum. So real challenge controlling those nerves pre-fight.
I bet.
And you can be quite fragile. Interestingly, a boxer's quite fragile. Being like most other athletes, if your training's gone perfectly well and everything's been great, then things can, you can get in and you can be quite sturdy and you have that strong mindset. It doesn't take much. Certainly in my case, it didn't take much for me to have to really battle hard to control my nerves after after that. So yeah, the first fight was wonderful. The everyone after that was a real challenge.
Yeah, and I'm sure just because boxing at such a young age, that must have been all you could think about, and especially for your teenage years. Did you become obsessed with it? Even though you were battling those nerves, did you become obsessed with the challenge, the fitness side of it? Did you look up to, did you have heroes, boxers that you looked up to? How obsessed was it for your teenage years? And what was your relationship like with boxing? During that time, growing up with it?
So early teenage years, I'll be perfectly honest, and my record reflected this. So my early teenage years, I say my first 25 fights, I won half and lost half.
Mm-hmm.
It was distinctly average, to say the least. And that's because I probably wasn't fully switched on. I probably wasn't as dedicated and as committed as maybe I should have been. Maybe that was because I'd just started senior school and
Yeah.
the first few years I was a little bit not off the rails, but I wasn't terribly focused.
Yep.
I don't know what it was. I couldn't put my hand on it or point at a single thing
Mm-hmm.
that led to the level of success. Obviously, being really committed was one of them. So, yeah, all of a sudden it became pretty all-consuming. I was looking at friends in the gym. So one of my gym mates, John Jones, we still coach together now. And John got to the ABA finals. He was getting England representative. He was on to Canada. He was scheduled to fight in the Commonwealth Games. All this kind of stuff. Now you look at that, and I'm a big believer that young sports people learn as much off their peers, as much off their teammates, and get as much inspiration and motivation of their teammates as they do off a coach like me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big part of it. I felt that I could, if John could do it, then why couldn't I?
Yeah.
I began to really enjoy the training. I began to really enjoy the discipline of learning technical skills. I began to get, and then success breeds success. So once you get that flavour and get that performance where you feel that a performance has been really good, it's like, right, I want that again. And I had a great family around me. So all of a sudden I go from being fairly, sort of ambivalent about really, some days I'll put 100% in the gym and other days, to all of a sudden I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning in the middle of winter, running around Bootle Golf Course, getting me road working,
Mm-hmm.
but making sure I ran around with me staff bull terrier, because I went down that country road.
A little bit of security.
Golf course. I wasn't quite that brave.
Yeah.
But yeah, you it just became, and then I started watching. This is at the time when you've got Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, Norman Hagler.
Yeah, that amazing era of boxing.
Oh, mate, these guys were just on another level, and I used to chew through VHS tapes watching these guys, and then I'd go in and try and emulate some aspects of their style.
Yeah.
So, like everything else in life, there's I don't believe there's ever one thing. So being obsessed about something and being really committed to something is, of course, massively important. But there are other aspects around that go to building the overall outcome.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. So, by the end of your career, you'd had 60 fights, you became regional champion, national finalist, and you'd represented England in the under-19s. So, do you have, when you look back at that time, do you have that a standout moment that you was really proud of? And how much were you training? What did your training schedule look like at the time? And you as a coach now, do you look back and think, you know what, I wasn't doing that right, or I was overtraining, or I was focusing too much on this or too much on that? How did that look for you at the time when you think back to your boxing days?
Yeah, at the time. So the desire was getting an England vest.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted that vest. I
I'm
wanted
sure.
to see the rose on the chest.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, one of the things that drives me on as a coach now. I don't want to produce top boxers for the sake of me. I want them to get that feeling that there's nothing quite like it. It was unique. It was unbelievable. I remember boxing at the Royal Lancaster Hotel in Bayswater in London, and I got my vest and I went into the toilet and I sat in the cubicle, and I was just sat looking down at this rose, and I was just transfixed. It was like, oh my God, all them years, the last 3-4 years, and because I was at the lighter end of the weights, the making the weight was horrendous. Yeah, ask any, I guess, jockeys would feel the same.
Yeah.
We didn't. I was in a constant state of trying to make weight for one competition or another. It wasn't a great way of doing it. We didn't have the nous that we have now around it. It was only just coming to light. Then it was acceptable for a 15, 16-year-old to put on sweatsuits and just train constantly in sauna suits for weeks.
I was going to ask you, what were your techniques then, or how, in terms of, you're such a young lad and perhaps doing some of it off your own back, what did you, if you wanted to cut a lot of weight, how would you go about it, like physically, but also like your nutrition as well?
Nutrition, it's an interesting concept. I just didn't think in those terms, to be honest, and not a lot of us did, to be honest, Cal. It was just, you had to make weight. I'd go to bed early because I felt so sad and miserable that I wasn't able to eat, because I've always been very much focused on food. And it was really interesting. I watched Hands of Stone a little while ago, the Roberto Duran biopic with Robert De Niro in as Ray Arcel. And of course, I'm nothing like his upbringing. Duran was dreadfully poor. He was lived in abject misery and poverty. But food became a fascination for him throughout his whole life, and it was, at the core of some of his weight challenges. And I was, my granddad, we all lived in the same street. It's almost, granddad lived across the street. He was a chef in the Merchant Navy. So food was, my granddad felt that no matter what problems there were, as long as you had food in your belly, again, a man who was brought up in 1930s, brutal, food difficult to come by. Yeah. So food was very much a driving force for me, and I was having to starve myself. I was going to bed at 8 o'clock because I felt just miserable, and I'd eat little. I'd have toast with no butter on, maybe poached eggs here and there. Yeah. It wasn't the kind of smart.
No, it wasn't that
regime we'd have now.
Yeah, like you say, there's now you would have that long-term approach and tapering it down with perhaps as little pain as possible and trying to give yourself the best chance possible. But for you, it just must have been dropping the calories, up in the running with the sweatsuit on, and I can imagine that was a brutal. You must have gone through some brutal weight cuts, and they couldn't have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I remember boxing at the Grosvenor House Hotel. I boxed Danny Oliver, who's Spencer Oliver's brother.
Yep.
And I'd been boiling myself to make the weight. Went down before we got on the train on the morning of the fight. Went to a sauna in Bootle. Got on the train. I've got a photograph of me eating an apple with a knife, so that I could shave off little bits and make it feel like it lasted longer. We got to London and I got into bed wearing bin bags and slept for 2 hours in bin bags.
Wow.
This is just ridiculous.
Just crazy stuff. Yeah.
I would. There's no way I would allow my boxers.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be a conversation, even though some of them, would they'll always walk that walk. But we're taking check weights now for competitions that we know we're going to be in 12 weeks' time. So we start getting the boxers focused really early on just managing their intake of calories and just understanding what food they're eating and what food they shouldn't be eating.
It's so, what I've always found interesting with sort of, say, combat sports in general and, having to cut weight, and just going through some hard times when you're preparing for a fight. And there's that train of thought where there's that old school approach, which is obviously not too science based, and it's very brutal and it's a very hard approach. And like you were just saying now, you would never recommend some of those methods. But when you look back, it's funny, like, even though they're not the best methods, there are still some benefit to them, because they some sort of it's almost some like callousing of the brain and making you tough. I mean, do you still find that? I mean, looking back at how you used to train, do you still find, even though those methods would be considered old school and outdated, that they still had a huge benefit to you at the time?
I think certainly mentally just before the fight.
Yeah, you
it
knew,
would
because it
be,
felt like you've been through something so tough that that must have given you confidence, knowing that you could get through hard times.
and you've just hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah,
It's that confidence because of the capability. It's also, you are borderline. You're constantly having to fight the desire to hate the opponents. You know,
yeah,
those feelings of hatred creep in because of everything you've put yourself through. It's really important that they are managed, but it gives you this willingness to just destroy in a really cold and calculated, short bursts of hyper-aggression, controlled hyper-aggression.
yeah.
And you are able to bring all of the suffering that you've done
Exactly, into that one moment. For that poor guy across the ring is unfortunately going to feel it for those that short bout of aggression. But yeah, that is what when I think of that is kind of like looking at that old school, Rocky training approach. Yes, now you would look at it and say, no, it's not, it's not science based. He's just going off of emotion, like, during his training. But there is some benefit to that.
I think there is, but at the same time, you can still, it's still a fairly brutal sort of training regime anyway. So I think, if you can get them to treat their body like an engine, but in every other aspect, you are going to push them beyond what they can realistically take. I remember a few years ago, a coach that we had, he's not with us now, but I remember being in the office with John and this other guy, and he goes, we need to cut some of the dead wood out of here. And it shocked me, because I kind of I take this view that any kid who walks through that door, any young person who walks through that door, any adult who walks through that door, who's willing to come in and put the time in, as long as they're working hard and they're showing commitment, then I will take time with them. Boxing has a way of, as this gentleman put it, cutting out the dead wood. The training, the competition. If you're not suited to it, if you're not committed to it, then you'll walk away. It's not like football. It's not like a team sport where you've got 10 guys around you who can look after you. I know fellas who played football for years, 6 pints a night, hammered on a Saturday night, turn up and play on a Sunday morning. And that's fair enough. You can say they're playing at a low level. The problem you have with boxing, it's a very binary type of sport. You either are fully prepared for a fight, or you're not. You can't.
It's one or the other.
Or you're not. And the quicker people understand that when they take on boxing, the better for all concerned, to be honest.
Yeah. I read that, you said about yourself, you perhaps weren't particularly talented, but hugely, hugely committed, and you obviously worked extremely hard. So in your experience, kind of what you described there, really, in boxing gyms, how common is it for people to walk in and begin, say, I want to have a fight, I want to start training. At what point do generally people become overwhelmed with the dedication and the discipline that's required, to be in that top level? What is there a particular moment that you have seen where people sort of fall by the wayside, and it generally happens? is it different for everyone? In your experience, what have you seen? And what's your opinion on that, that balance between talent and, hard work?
It's a really, really good question.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's a
okay,
bit
so
tricky, I know, but
it's a good question, and you. Okay, so a couple of factors really. There's an age range. So if you get a kid coming into the gym, let's say they come into the gym at the age of 11, and they work through, and because nowadays we like to make it fun. So when I was a kid, we went into a boxing club, and there'd be that many that what the coaches would do, just throw them in the ring, beat the crap out of each other, and if they kept coming back, that's your commitment. Nowadays, we just simply can't do that. Nor should we. So you have to teach kids some level of skills, ability to defend, attack, before you put them in a situation where they're going to be exchanging blows with another individual. So kids can look great in shadow boxing on bags, this, that, and the other. And then they get in the ring, and the first clean shot they take, it's like, oh, nah, you know what I mean? This
No.
is not for me. You
Yeah.
know, and you
Yeah.
can see it, and there's a struggle in them keeping a lid on that. So that first moment of actually being in a spar, and if they get through that, then a fight is different, because in a spar it's under control. You know, generally speaking, you're sparring with a club mate. There's no what I would call venom in the punches. All of a sudden, when you get into an actual fight, you know, the guy is trying to hurt you then. and that's different when someone's actually trying to put you
It's
to
a
sleep.
different feeling. That person in front of you, they must, they're going to look different. Their intentions are completely different than a spar, like you say.
Of course. And the whole process, the lead up to the fight, well, that's, said earlier on, you speak to anyone, those minutes, hours, days before a fight are, depending on the nature of you as a person, they are stressful. Sometimes they are borderline, where you just feel like throwing it all in. And if if you don't want to be going through that, that's another point at which people can fall away.
Yeah.
There's a general age range as well. Kids between 15 to 18. There are so many other temptations in life.
Yeah.
For both young boys and young girls, that that's another age where they fall away. Once they get past a certain point, and if they do fall away, I've had kids walk away, decent kids walk away at 18, and then try and come back a few years later. And I never try and if a kid wants to walk away, or a young person or an adult wants to walk away, I will never ever try and persuade them to stay. I'll just go, all right, yeah.
No, because
well, you know where we are.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're going to be up against fighters that are 100% never even considered walking away.
Exactly.
Because some people are 100% all in, and that's it. You can't try boxing. It's not something you just can try, and no, not safely anyway.
No, you can't, and then you get into all of that. I mean, it's so popular now, this whole white collar thing. That's probably a whole podcast in itself to have a conversation about that. But it's becoming. I'd hate people to casualise it to a point. I'd hate, because bad advice in boxing gets people hurt. It's not, bad advice in tennis. Okay, you're
that's
gonna
true. You're slightly safer in
bad,
tennis. Yeah.
Yeah, bad advice in golf. Your handicap's going to be affected.
Yeah.
Bad advice in this business gets people hurt.
For sure.
So.
I just want to touch on that point that you just said earlier about how stressful it can become leading up to a fight. In your experience with your fights and other people, that you've coached and that you've seen, what are those main causes of stress? Is it people's mind getting on top of them and them just picturing the worst possible outcome? That feeling of perhaps, losing in front of their family, getting knocked out, being embarrassed, not being good enough. Is it all of those things? Just that the fear becomes overwhelming. Is that what it is?
Yes, I think that is the case. Now, you know, you know you're going to be exchanging blows with someone, but that really is secondary. You know, it's really simple. You know, you could get it with a body shot, and that will hurt like hell, and you'll either be able to continue or you won't. You get hit with a headshot hurts for the second or so, or it doesn't hurt at all, and you wake up in the dressing room. You know, it's
Yeah.
these things are, but generally speaking, and certainly with myself, it was fear of loss, because losing is miserable. It doesn't feel good at all.
Mm-hmm.
So in many ways, it's just that fear of experiencing loss. So, and you've got to try and, right from the outset, you're so focused on visualizing winning, so you're constantly visualizing what's happening at the fight and how each round is going to go and how much control you're going to be in.
Yeah.
That actually, if you get to the end or something badly goes wrong and you end up losing, you know you're going to feel like crap at least for 24 hours or so, and then you dust yourself off and you move on.
Yeah.
But you know, there's other kids, you know, other boxers, that there is a genuine fear of conflict, fear of the battle, and that's perfectly logical and reasonable. Why wouldn't you? And without it, I know it's a cliche. Oh, you need that fear, but generally speaking, you do. You do need to.
Yeah.
Because everything's primed much more, you know. So it's different reasons. At the core of this, you have to find ways of controlling it, even down to things like what I used to do. Butterflies are a terrible thing. So you take a massive breath, and right at the top of that breath, the butterflies disappear just for a split second.
Yeah.
And then when you exhale, they come straight back. However, that's why you'll see, and that's why I often see boxers often before a fight doing big inhalations.
Okay.
Right to the top, and it just gives them a momentary...
Just a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, once you're in the ring and the bell goes...
Yeah, you're in the zone.
Again, another cliche. But you've got so much more on you. But you haven't got time to be fearful or worrying about this, that, or the other.
Yeah,
you know?
that makes sense. So going back to your career, you finished fighting at the age of 21. So I read that you said that after your last fight, it convinced you that, you know, your fighting days were done. So what was that for, and why did you have that for?
So it's probably worth just giving a little...
Yeah, sure.
A little intro to that last fight. So I sort of took a break at 19, came back at 21, and once the region knew that I was boxing again, it was straight in. It was like, right, we've got a North West Counties representative match coming up against South West County. So I got in the ring against an ABA quarterfinals, 4 2-minute rounds, boxed really well, and I won them. Happy days, you know. The big comeback, excellent, all happy. And then we line up the next fight, which is on our home show, boxing a kid from Kirby, you know, probably the most famous gym in Liverpool. It produced John Conte, Paul Hodgkinson, produced like world champions, this gym, and has always produced top kids. And I was boxing against a particular lad. No worries, I felt I could, you know, felt it was well within me. A few days before the fight, that kid dropped out, and they put in a guy called Alex Moon. Now, Alex went on to the pro ranks to become a Commonwealth champion. And as soon as they said, "Oh, you're going to be boxing Alex Moon now," I thought, that's sporty. Like I said, okay, but is it over 4 2s? Yeah, no problem. 4 2-minute rounds. I'd trained for 4 2s. Everything's fine. Okay. I thought to myself, right, you may not win him, because Alex is like seasoned at this point. I thought, you may not win him, but I'll be competitive. I knew I was going to be competitive, and I was going to give it a good go. And when we got in the ring, just as I was about to go out, the MC read out as a featherweight contest, 3 rounds of 3 minutes each round. And I turned to my corner man and said, "Well, what's going on there?" And he said, "Oh, don't worry, Sandy, it's just a small adjustment." Of course it wasn't. We mentioned earlier about the fragility of a fighter. Inside my head was just screaming, because I just knew I was done. I trained for 4 2s. Now, the difference between a 2-minute round, 4 2-minute rounds,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 3-minute rounds is very significant, especially if you've simply not trained for 3 3. So, oh shit, I'm in the ring now. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, your
So,
head's all over the place. That must have been a really
no,
horrible feeling.
it was horrendous. I was
Mm.
screaming inside me. This is bad. And it goes off the first round, competitive for the first couple of minutes, and then Alex, probably about 30 seconds to go, catching me with this body shot, nearly disembowels me. So touchdown with one knee. Get back to the corner. Managed to get myself together. Go on for the second round, and same routine. Gets through 2 minutes, heading into the third minute, and again he catches me with a body shot. And as I touch down again, and the towel comes in. But the thing is with boxing, if the referee begins the count, a towel coming in from your corner does not stop the count. I saw the towel come in. I just stood up and walked back to the corner.
Yeah.
The referee continued counting and counted to 10. It was technically a count out. And my cornerman shouted at me, "Oh, look, you've got 28 days now, whatever." And I just thought, wow, you don't understand what's just happened there. You have no idea that that's my last fight. I just knew right at that moment.
Wow, you just knew, and you just felt completely comfortable with it, like almost at ease with it. Like, oh, I'm done. I'm just, that's me done.
Yeah, that's me. I'm done. I'm finished now. I will never step inside this ring again.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, to have that at such a young age and that's quite mature at just 21 years old.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, mate, because at that time, it was the early 90s. All of my mates, it was the height of the rave sort of culture. It was just getting into a crescendo. So
you're ready to have some fun.
I had friends. I was, mate, because I'd spent. Don't forget, the previous few years I'd just boiled myself alive constantly.
Yeah.
There's only so much weight making you can do.
Yeah, that's right.
And I got up the ring, and the first face I saw was my granddad. I idolized my granddad. And in the taxi on the way home, I just said to him, he'd been to see most of my fights throughout my career. I just said, "Granddad, I'm done, don't you?" And he went, "I know, son. I know, that's it. No worries. Walk away now." And that was it. That was,
wow. Yeah.
There was no... But, I was lying to myself a little bit because the kind of lads... Because I'd got to England level, I wasn't going to be fighting any average fighters anymore. They were all going to be top class.
Yeah.
And you've got to... I wasn't at the races like I was when I was 17, 18. I wasn't training in that same way. Didn't have that mindset. So I was lying to myself. So in many ways,
so it was a great decision, a sensible decision, and a decision that 100% doesn't sound like you regret at all, which is nice. Which is nice to know.
Yeah, not at all.
Awesome, mate.
I've got an England vest, and it's a modest achievement compared to. So I was listening to your podcast with Tony Jeffries. What a lad he is.
Oh yeah, he's done really well.
So he's had he's talking 50, 60 representative matches for England. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's on another level when you're dealing with lads like that compared to what I was thinking of. So, but albeit a modest achievement, it is my proudest achievement. It really was. And I'd encourage anyone in any sport, seek to represent your country. There's nothing quite like it.
I bet. Just a completely different level of feelings and experience. Yeah. Awesome, mate. So the year is 1991, and you worked as a health and safety executive, and then you went back to school in 1995 to study computing and business IT. So during that time, what was your relationship like with with boxing? How did you view boxing? Were you sort of lost all interest with it? Did you do a little bit of training? And what sort of was your plan after boxing? Did you was you nervous about the future, or was you excited about sort of the new stage of your new life?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, because of the commitment to boxing, I really didn't do as well at school as I should have done. I was just so focused on boxing that I didn't get the exam results that I should have. This is something I really try and encourage the boxers I work with now, whether they're academic or not. Try and do the very best you can in school. Try and get yourself a trade really early. Try and do all of that stuff. And, your boxing career can come. Get this before you, or get this as you. Try and manage the two things in a sensible way. I didn't really, so I knew that I was probably underachieving a bit, and then I went back and thought, you know what, IT will do me. I'm a fairly I'm a halfway intelligent lad. You know what I mean? I was doing okay. I never ever fell out of love with boxing. I got to see less of it because, you know, the early 90s, Sky came along, and all of a sudden boxing went off terrestrial television.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I've exchanged some views with some Sky pundits on this just via the Twitter thing, and they'll all say that Sky has done remarkable things for boxing, and maybe that's right. I think in some respects it's made a few people lots and lots of money, but at the same time it also marginalised it maybe slightly. I could be wrong. You know, you're talking 20 million people watched Barry McGuigan boxing in the mid-80s. Now, I appreciate and accept that there's a lot more TV channels and a lot more everything else, but so I didn't get to see as much of the boxing as I would have liked to have done in the early 90s. It just wasn't accessible. No, internet was very formative then. There was no YouTube. But I was still training. I still train maybe once, twice a week, and I've always done that. And I was helping some people out with a little bit of sparring. A couple of England lads from round the area, one in particular. He was at the lighter end of the weights, and he struggled for sparring. And because I was ex-England, I could give him some decent sparring. So I'd go in the gym and I'd help him out with sparring. So I certainly kept in touch with boxing. And then, you know, not long after, in 1996 or so, my niece, and we've got my in-laws, it's a fairly small family. My niece on my wife's side, she was 18 months old. She got diagnosed with a very rare and aggressive form of cancer. So all of a sudden that became my sort of 100% focus, and I spent a lot of time with Leah and in and around the hospital and trying to do the very best I could. And it all worked out brilliant. She's a 22-year-old little stunner now. And,
good.
You know, but it was you know, you talk about things that go to make the content of your character, and I used to think I knew about fighting with my 60 boxing fights. Until you've spent months on end on a children's cancer ward, you have no idea what a fight is, and it was very humbling, and it was
I'm sure
educational in that respect.
Wow.
So you know, it was a period of growing, even though I didn't know it.
Yeah, for sure. So 98, that's when you went back to the boxing club, and you started to work as a coach. So did someone sort of say, "Hey, Fran, you need to get back into this. You know, you'd be good as a coach," or did you yourself think, you know what, I think I could see myself as a coach? And what were your motivations for getting back at the boxing club and getting back into coaching?
Well, traditionally, you speak to anyone in a boxing club, coaching is always a challenge. These places are voluntary; they run voluntary. So the more coaches you have, the smoother the place runs, the less pressure there is on individuals. We've only, you know, at the time when was my old trainer, Frank Atkinson, was there. You know, Frank only passed away at the end of last year, and I did a little eulogy at his funeral. What a man, and you know, someone who'd given his life to coaching young boxers. And Frank just said, you know, why don't you come on in? And I just started to get in and try and work with the kids. When I got my coaching qualifications, and it was kind of like a half request, half almost felt like a little bit of an obligation, to be honest. Well, I've got a little bit of time. I didn't have kids at that time. Yeah. So why not get in and try and help out? It felt like a natural thing to do, to be honest.
Yeah. You said it took you 2 years to actually stop thinking like a fighter and start thinking like a coach. So, could you give like a practical example of that, looking back, thinking about the sort of that mindset that you had when you first started coaching, and what was difficult for you about transitioning your mind from the thought process of a fighter to a coach?
Yeah. I'd say the the key thing was separation and distancing. You kind of, for the first few years, I found it very difficult to get my point across. I've become very emotionally involved in a boxer's performance, and that really didn't help. I was constantly wanting to jump in and go, "That's not how you do it. This is how you do it."
Yeah.
And that's just not where you need to be if you're going to teach and educate. You need to find ways of explaining things. You need to create a situation where a boxer can learn by doing. So you explain a skill, you demonstrate it, you explain the risks, you explain the possible benefits, you identify the common faults, and you work through on that. As a fighter, you just do. No, you
Yeah.
just don't. No reason. You just get in and you do it, and you get on with it. And so switching away from that and becoming someone who could take an individual and set a series of short-term goals, all headed towards the long game of developing that individual into a competent fighter, is a very different set of skills, and requires, as I said, a level of emotional distancing and separation, to allow you to look at a match.
It's amazing how, it just sounds like as a coach, you have to be extremely balanced yourself, with your emotions, when otherwise you can end up having a negative effect on a fighter. And one of the best skills has to be, having empathy, knowing how that person perhaps is feeling. And that kind of goes into my next point about, do you feel it's possible for somebody to become an excellent coach? Because from what you've said, it kind of does and it kind of doesn't. So what's your opinion on that? To become a very good boxing coach, do you have to have got in the ring yourself to get to that top level? Or do you think it's possible to become a coach without having that previous experience in the ring?
I absolutely think it's possible.
Okay.
To become a coach without having had any boxing experience, actually competitive experience. Now, I know that there's plenty of boxing people out there who will disagree with me on that.
Yeah, that's
We're
right.
all entitled to our opinions. Now,
Yep.
my reasoning for this is, what I will never ever do, you picked up on it, the only aspect of my boxing career that I think is relevant is dealing with pre-fight nerves and emotions, and having empathy with a boxer at that time about what they're going through, right? I will never ever speak to a boxer and go, what I like to do, what I used to like. I used to like trying the uppercut followed by a hook, followed by an uppercut. Because, look, I'm in the coaching business. I'm in the business of trying to help people develop and become great boxers. I'm not in the business of creating copies of me. I want the boxers that I work with to be way, way better than I ever was. So how am I going to do that if I keep harking back to what I think works specifically for me?
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing then is imposing the fact that I had a particular set of physical characteristics, a particular mindset, particular set of skills, particular set of preferences in how I like to fight. So what that means, I have to impose them on all the boxers I work with. No, I'm sorry, that's just not what I buy into.
Yeah.
I think boxing can be broke down into round about 60 skills. You can tie them skills together in different ways to form tactics to deliver overall strategies. As long as an individual you've had some exposure to competition in any sport, I believe, then you can, because what we discussed earlier was about fear of loss, you can have empathy about how an individual wants to perform well. So 100%,
Awesome.
you don't need to have boxed to become a good boxing coach. I know some really good boxing coaches who never competed once.
Cool. So I know it's a bit of a broad sort of question and answer, but what do you think makes a great boxing coach? When you think back to when you first started, what are perhaps those mistakes that, boxing coaches, mate, you kind of touched on it earlier where you said, you know, you just want to get in there and you want to be, you kind of feel like you have to be completely 100% emotionally involved, but it doesn't sound like, you know, there's any sort of longevity in that. And how do you manage that? But what do you think makes a great boxing coach that's on the right, you know, that's on the right path?
Yeah, I think I can only say what these are my values, these are my sort of principles. I think it's really important that the boxer feels cared for, that they feel that you are looking after them, because, you know, there's few lonelier places than a boxing ring. When things are going wrong, when things are not going your way, it can be a very lonely experience when you know you're on the wrong end of a hiding. You know, the only person who can stand by you and either save you or give you the right insight to make something different happen is your coach. So forming bonds and making that boxer feel really cared for, aside from what we said, because what I was saying earlier on was really about being dispassionate in relation to the technical performance of the boxer. But actually, we all want to be cared for. We all want to feel that we're being looked after. We all want to feel that we are of value. And so that's the first thing I try to ensure that all of the boxers I work with feel valued. I also like humour. I like, you know, they know not to cross the line, but I'm quite happy to be called Harry Hill, or, you know, every now and again one of them will slap me on the top of the head just to emphasise my follically challenged
You like
situation.
to have that healthy relationship where you can take the piss a little bit, and it's
absolutely, mate. But they know when it's time to do business, it's time to do business. So they know they wouldn't do that. If they're doing that in between rounds on a heavy bag, then they'll get a bollocking because they're not working hard enough.
Okay.
So there's that. There's an ability to impart information and ideas. You know, if the boxer feels cared for, then they are going to listen to you. And then once you've got them in a position where they want to listen to you, it's about getting across the right information, not doing too much talking, and getting them to learn by doing. And, you know, there's this thing really about, I know coaches who only want to work with the elite lads. They get too, you know, it's almost beneath them to work with brand new boxers. And I kind of take the approach of, even only on Wednesday, I worked with 2 brand new girls and 2 brand new boys. And I absolutely love it. I love that first 30 minutes of getting the kid in the ring and working them through the stance and teaching them the first 5 skills.
You see their faces lighting up and how excited they are. Yeah.
I call it the knowing smile. They know they're getting taught something
That's cool.
Is not common knowledge. They know they're seeing a door just creak open. And they're getting to see inside what is something quite different and quite special. And I'll never ever tire of that. So as much as I love working with the elite lads and girls, I also love working with the brand new ones. And I think it's really important to keep that passion, to try and keep that desire going, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I love that, mate. So you've coached, you know, many boxers from sort of 8 years and up. If you're looking at just pure physical attributes and someone's, you know, physical capabilities, what are those signs if you walked into a boxing gym and, you know, you looked at, you know, some people hitting the bag, some people hitting the pads, you know, people doing sparring, like a busy boxing gym. If you're looking around at those fighters, what are some physical attributes that you like to see in terms of how people move, in terms of, you know, their timing, their technique? What are some really key physical attributes, especially with young, you know, children and teenagers getting into boxing? Where can you spot the talent? Like, where do you, when you're looking at a young fighter, what are them key signs that tells you, okay, this kid has got talent for boxing?
There's a couple of things really. They have this. There's something about the stance. The stance is natural. The distance between the feet stay broadly the same. They have an ability to move under control. Their feet aren't getting in a muddle. And this is fairly early on, so they haven't had to do lots and lots of drills to get to this point. All boxers can get to that point, but some kids, some naturally athletically talented or they've got good coordination. Young girls, interestingly, tend to develop that ability sort of quicker than young lads. They just have that, I guess, coordination seems to be in place a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So there's the feet, their ability to move under control. There's the ability to throw clean, straight shots, and really sort of machine gun-like shots, if you like. You know, they have a high intensity about their work. They throw good punches and lots of them, and they have this intensity that goes with it. And yeah, you know, they'll not just pour loads of punches on, but they'll throw a couple and then they'll move the head and shift position, and all of that seems to happen fairly cleanly. And it's just, but the ability to rotate when they're throwing those clean, straight shots is always a giveaway. Now, that's not to say you can look at that and go, excellent. Across the other side of the gym could be a kid who's going to take you 6 months of banging your head against the brick wall to get them anywhere near that.
Yeah.
They will continue to grow and develop. So you can see talent, but that talent is only part of the story, as I'm sure you probably know that.
Yeah.
You know, there's the kid across the gym who works like a Trojan, is there all the time, and who can develop and grow and ultimately get better outcomes. Growth mindset, mate, it works right across the board, in my opinion.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I read that the area that your boxing gym is located has had its sort of problems in respect of crime. What impact have you seen, you know, the gym have on individuals that have come down to the gym, as well as the wider community? And I know you're a volunteer yourself, which is great, and you've said all the other coaches are volunteers. So yeah, what impact has that had on the community, the boxing club?
Well, the gym has been a fundamental part of our community since sort of 1976. A group of men got together, local men got together, got some insurance money and built a purpose-built gym. It's never been broken into, which probably is a major. You know, most of the kids from the area have at one point or another maybe even been in if it's only for one session. But it's a sort of throughout everything that's gone on, throughout all of the other resources in the area being reduced for various funding reasons. The gym has always sort of stood tall. And interestingly, I guess I could tell you a quick story about the direct impact. We had a kid, this is a good few years ago. He came to us when he was about 15. He was unremarkable in every sense of the word. He was thin, gangly. He was just a bag of nerves, you know. Whereas normally it takes us 6 to 12 months to take an individual who knows nothing and get them prepared to a level where we can put them into the ring ready for a contest. That's on average 6 to 12 months. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit quicker, sometimes it's a little bit longer, but that's a rule of thumb, 6 to 12 months. Mm-hmm. With this kid, he was just an absolute bag of nerves. 2 years down the line, we're still struggling with him. And you know, it turns out my brother is a season ticket holder at Everton, a football club, and his mate who he goes with is this kid's uncle, and he explained to us that James had I'm not going to, without going into any detail, the kind of upbringing that would shred self-esteem. So it made sense. So I was talking to John, and it made absolute sense because he was just so nervous, so unsure of himself. We eventually got into a place where John, like, okay, let's get him about then. All right, we'll get him about. Let's see what we can do. Gets him a fight. We're on our own show. He's friendly with one of our female coach, 18, young Ashley. and he said, "I like Ashley in my corner, both the same age, good friends." And I said, "No problem, I'll hand up. So you've got me in the corner, experienced coach. Ashley can do the talking." And he gets in the ring and he's boxing the kid. And surely this kid's like sort of ginger haired, sort of pale skin, tattoos everywhere, powerhouse. So he's 18 by now, James.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taken us 2 years to get him in the ring. And this kid is a strong kid from the other corner. And we said, all right, we'll just go out, get control, range, where you go. He goes out and has his first round, and he does brilliantly, we think. So he sits down, Ashley T, and I, so when a boxer's in the round, I'll kind of go, right, Ash, tell him to do A and B. You never shout lots of instructions at a boxer, because the very most you can hope for is that they remember one or two of them.
Yeah.
You get them watered, you get them breathing and recovered, and you give them one or two bits of tactical advice. That's what I do anyway. And Jay comes back to the corner and he sits down, and Ashley takes his gum shield out, passes it to me. I'll give her the spray, and I'm washing his gum shield. Next minute, Jay just turns around and goes, I can't do it, and he just loses all control. And he just starts, his tears in his eyes. And I'm stood there, and Ashley just looks at me. This is the first time she's ever done corner work.
Cool, that's a tough corner.
Unusual thing I've ever seen in the corner. And I kind of,
first go.
Yeah. It's one of those Everton stop kind of moments.
Yeah.
You know, the natural paternal instinct in you makes you want to stand up, give him a hug, and go, don't worry, son. Everything's going to be all right. We'll pull you out.
Yeah.
We'll take you out of this situation.
Yeah.
And I kind of stood there, and the world just stopped, and I thought, no, I can't do it. I just looked at him, and actually, I just looked at James and went, right, James, you are going to stand up, you are going to go out, and you are going to fight. You are in a fight. That's it. Get yourself together. Stand up now. When you go out, I want you to use uppercuts. Constantly use uppercuts. He's leaning in on you as you come close, so use your uppercuts. And I think there's times when, as a coach, life's all about opening doors for people. And there's also times when it's about slamming doors in someone's face. And that's what we have to do with James. We shut the door in his face and sent him back out. And he went out and stopped the kid in the next round.
Wow, mate, that's like a scene. That's like a scene from a movie.
It was, and I shit you not, there is not a word of a lie there. It's, you know, we came back to the corner, and I stood on the ring apron, and I gave him a hug, and I said to him, look, son, whatever else happens in life now, you're a man. No one can take that away from you. You've done something today that most average people would never dream of doing. So you walk tall now. And he only had another bout after that. And then, you know, I was looking at some Facebook images of him last night. You wouldn't believe where he is now. He battled Crohn's disease for 2 years. Really bad.
Yeah.
And then he went into bodybuilding. So he used to go on bodybuilding stages with his... He used to have a bag, you know, to deal with the Crohn's disease because he couldn't use the toilet properly. So and now he does small hall wrestling. He's built like a monster now.
Wow, that's unbelievable. But like,
and now he does all the small hall wrestling. You know,
no,
it's fantastic to see. So they
I
know it was a bit of a long-winded story.
No, I love that story.
That's one person who knew he could come to the boxing club. We don't know with many of our boxers what goes on in their lives. All we know is that we can provide a controlled and structured environment. They will be treated with dignity and respect. They will be cared for, and they will be challenged, and they will be expected to behave in a certain way. I think that means something. So even if a kid only comes to us for a couple of weeks, they've learned how to say please and thank you when they come to ask me to put gloves on them.
That's great.
They say please and they say thank you because I say it to them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That sounded like, that sounded like it could have been a pivotal and a really huge moment for him. You know, if you would have opened the door and said, okay, let's leave it, put your arms around him and just wave the fight off. You know, but that's a big call that you had to make in that decision. So you must feel proud of yourself that you made that decision, knowing what he's gone on to after that.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
It was the most intense thing I think I've ever experienced as a coach.
Yeah.
Because it literally was one of those, you know, if it was in a bar, it was like some unwelcome figure walking into a bar and everything stops. The jukebox stops, everyone turns to look.
The piano stops, yeah. Everyone looks over.
The clock literally stopped ticking, and
yeah.
it felt like an age.
Yeah.
But you wrestle with this thing, and
Yeah.
I think I'm a huge believer when it comes to dealing with a fight. You know, resignation is a word that's often associated with negative, that has negative connotations. Resignation, you resign in chess, you resign your job or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But actually resigning yourself to the fact that you're going to be in a fight is remarkably liberating. You just go, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I've got to go and fight, and it is empowering in a sense, and that's what I was hoping was going to happen with Jay, and it worked. And I watched a little grainy video of it a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And I was it just bristled, the hairs on my neck bristled, and I went and spoke to his uncle after it as well, and you know, it was like, yeah, he's now a confident man, and I know James he's got very strong views that our boxing club was central to that. It wasn't, you know, it was the central part of that.
Quality, mate.
And we were very proud of that. We're very proud of those stories. We have a number of them, as do all boxing clubs. This is not unique to me. I'm not special. We're not special. We have boxing clubs up and down the land, all around the world, and people are doing this.
Yeah.
You know, almost 100% is voluntary, and it's what we do. You know.
Amazing, mate. All I suggest is that you start thinking about who you would like to play you in the movie once Steven Spielberg comes a knocking. You just got to start having to think about that, because I think it's going to happen.
Ray Arcel got Robert De Niro.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd probably get one of the Seven Dwarfs, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, start having a think. Awesome, mate. So we go on to 2010. So you start uploading your videos to YouTube. So what made you first start that? Where did you come up with the idea, and you know, was the idea just to reach sort of as many people as possible? You know, what was your sort of vision when you first started with that?
So it was interesting because I was working with a mate. So I'm in IT. I work for the government, and I've got a well-paid job. It's a decent job, and I get to work with lots of different people. And I was working with who's become a really close friend of mine now. His name's Gary Booth, and Gary is a really smart guy. He's been somewhat of a mentor for me, sort of over the years, and we found that we shared a love of boxing. Gary was his father-in-law was a really sort of tough Scotsman. Funny enough, he was brought up in the same street as Sean Connery in Edinburgh, but he lived in Stockport, and he used to go to all the fights as he'd have a press pass and a camera. But he was like one of them old school doormen. Arthur, his name was, and he was just one of Manchester's tough men, you know, through the sort of, I guess, 60s, 70s. And he was a boxing coach at Bredbury Amateur Boxing Club. And Gary, because of this connection, he has a real passion for boxing. But he's also a smart guy. He's a business analyst, and he knew a lot about internet marketing and internet business. And he goes, you know what? He said, he says, you've got a good mix of, my true expertise is boxing, but I've got some knowledge of IT. I've got some knowledge of putting together big projects and seeing them through. So he gave me some resources, and he said, why don't you do some videos? And them early videos, some of the earliest ones I've done, I look at them now, I had no idea what I was doing. There's some handy-cam. And I put these floodlights on, and they are like, you know, it's basically like being coached by Casper the Ghost. Just this ghostly white figure
That's
in
brilliant.
the middle of our boxing club. And I just look at them now, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to take them down.
No, leave them. Be proud of them. Remember your roots.
Sort of, they're part of history. You know, but I just started putting it through, and I thought, you know, I looked about online, and some of the stuff I saw, I just thought, you're not a boxing coach. You know, some of the guys are saying, you haven't even boxed. I know you haven't boxed. I can just tell the way you are moving around. I can tell you can tell. Anyone who's a coach can tell.
Yeah.
And you're online giving advice out here. I find that dreadful, I just don't think it's... So there was, I carried on, and it was my vision for where it might go, I guess, is, I'd love for my online work, helping people all over. The more people I help to achieve my goals, I hope the closer I get achieve their goals, closer I get to achieving them. And I would love my online work to sustain my daytime, because what I would love to do is open the boxing club up of a day and make it available to ex-soldiers who are maybe struggling, people who don't have the funds to go to conventional gyms, or kids who are struggling in school, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's such a brilliant resource that I would love to be able to do that and run the online business. I know I can. I know I've got the commitment and the desire to do that.
Yeah.
And that was always the vision. Now, I didn't really, take it to. It was only a couple of years ago that it really began to take hold. It's now a functioning business, and I've got a vision of where it's going to be. And yeah, I'm approaching it in the same way as approaching boxing. Mm-hmm. I might not be the best at, editing videos. I might not be the best at sales or any of that type of stuff. But I know that I'm a decent coach, and I know that I want to help people, and I know that I can give good advice that will help guys who and ladies who don't have access to good coaching.
Love it, mate. What's that?
And it's still there.
Yeah. What's that feedback been like? Since you've started and over the years as the channel's progressed, and you've come up with sort of more ideas on how better to deliver, these training systems that you've created, and these, you do the videos, which the 90-second boxing tips, which are brilliant, and they get a lot of views. But yeah, what's the general feedback been like since you've been doing it?
I'm very, very fortunate, really. Look, you're always going to get the online world provides a good place for assholes to be needlessly aggressive.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay.
And it's easy for people like that as well.
It is. They can hide behind the people, and you get a lot of
yeah.
You get a lot of theorists who, will, say that what you're saying is rubbish. But that's no problem. But I'd say that's probably without exaggeration, that's probably 1 in 100 comments. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of comments I get are, just positive and grateful because people are getting, a decent advice. One that always sticks in my mind is this guy here. I think my accent probably got him a bit confused because he goes, man, I found this great, it was on some forum, found this great YouTube channel with this really cool old Eastern European guy. And put a link to my site, and some other fella came on.
That's hilarious.
Eastern European. He was from Liverpool, the Beatles, and oh God, really cool Eastern European.
Cool. But, hey, at least he put cool though,
I look beyond the old as well, so
don't worry about that.
You have a little bit of a thick skin, but overall it's been really positive, and it's nice to be able to help people. I get such lovely emails where people are grateful because I've made a bit of a difference to them, and even with their kids, and it gives you a lift, especially when you've got a lot of work on it. Gives you a real lift,
Awesome, mate. And you said to me, before we started the podcast that sort of back in the day you never sort of felt like you had time to do all the reading and the learning, and now you've said that you sort of can't afford not to do it. I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, but obviously you're a big believer in growth mindset and productivity. So with your new online business, how are you practically like implementing the methodologies like into your life? to help you stay on track with your goals for the business. Yeah, what are some sort of practical things that you do day to day, to help you be more productive?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, all in all, I probably do 16-hour days. I'm up at 6.
Long days.
Long day. I'm in the boxing club 3 nights a week. I cook for the family, and then I sit down at sort of 8 o'clock and usually work till at least 11:30, and sometimes with deadlines I can go on longer than that. And then I'm up early on a Saturday morning. I tend to get up at sort of 5 or maybe 5:30 and work for 2 hours on a Saturday. It's a few years back, I was kind of like, no, this. I kind of know where I'm going, so there's no use me reading other stuff because that'll just distract me.
Yeah.
Right? That'll take me mind, or that'll take me eye off where I'm going, and I just didn't get it until then. I started learning about growth mindset. I started looking at sort of productivity systems. So I have a very specific way of working now. So there's two sorts of methodologies that underpin my productivity. So one is called GTD, Getting Things Done. It's by a guy called David Allen. It's quite a famous sort of productivity set, and that is really about using your brain in the right way to capture things that have got your attention and doing something with them. And the big thing I've learned from that is that I always carry a little notebook around, and I have a note taker thing on my phone, because your brain is brilliant at having ideas. It's so powerful when it comes to having ideas. It's crap for storing them. So
yeah.
Your brain is generally only designed to store 4 pieces of information at any one time. And this goes back to our days running around the savannah when there's lines over there, don't go near it. There's a water source there. Over the hill there are blueberries, and back that way there's a tribe that are our friends.
Yeah.
And you have these things. So every time I have an idea, I flip my notebook out and make a little note of it, because I know I'll forget it. So now I've got a way of making sure that as my brain's firing, as I'm coming up with ideas for content, for videos, for this, for that, I've got a way of capturing it. Then I have another thing called the 12-week year, and that's by a guy called Brian Moran, I think his name is. And the 12-week year is exactly as it sounds. So you break a calendar year down into 4 chunks, and I've got a 3-year vision, a 5-year vision, and a 10-year vision. Never did any of this years ago. Never did any of this in my 20s, never did any of this in my 30s.
Yeah.
It's only the last few years I've started doing this. And I've got these visions, this vision of where I'm going to be in 10 years, 5 years, and 3 years. And then each calendar year, then you break down into 4 12-week blocks with a 1-week overflow for each block. And you set goals for each of those weeks. And then every Sunday night, my Sunday nights are identical. Sit down. What is my goal for this week? And how do I break that down? So I have a spreadsheet with all the things I'm going to do, and these are usually in 1 to 2 hour blocks. And I allocate them in my Google Calendar from 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock each night, working in time for dealing with emails and all of that. So that on a Sunday night, I've done 2 things. I've set up a meal plan for the week for the family. Okay, so there's a shopping list ready for the missus the next morning, and she'll buy all the ingredients, and I'll cook meals. So I at least know that we get, good food, and we're not wasting money buying crap. And I've got a week perfectly planned out, so I don't have to waste any emotional energy every day thinking, right, what am I going to work on today? Yeah. Because I've worked that out on Sunday night. Everything is allotted. It's the interesting thing is this emotional energy thing is really important. You know that Steve Jobs used to say he had, at the beginning of his week, he had 7 pairs of jeans and 7 black T-shirts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So he didn't have to put any energy into thinking what he was going to wear that day. And I think when you are pushing yourself so much, when you're up at 6 and you're working through till 11, I think it's really important. And then the last 15 minutes of each night is on reading, and trying to get a little bit more information in there. So it's a very goals-driven life. Yeah. So I always look at it. You get effectively 4 new years every year. So you set those goals, and I found my productivity is just unbelievable. unbelievable now. It's really, I get time for the one we doing the stuff with the boxing. But the administration around running a community boxing club like ours has become massive, really, compared to what it was years ago.
Yeah.
So I get time to do that. I get time to be with my family, walk my dog. You know, I get one session a week to train myself and run the day job, and I run the business. So it works for me at the moment, but I'm always still looking for ways to hone it and make it a bit better.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's some really, really good advice for people listening. And I think that practical advice is, so important. And it's just building up all those little things and those little tips. And then, you get those big changes. So before we go on to the last bit, Fran, which is about the sort of areas of inspiration, I know you've recently secured funding for the boxing club from Merseyside Police for an extension on the gym. So what are the future plans for the gym? And then your sort of personal, future plans for your coaching career for myboxingcoach.com. What's that looking like for you?
Yeah, I mean, credit to Merseyside. So in our area, we've had we've got issues with knife crime. We've got some antisocial behaviour. We had a fatal shooting last year, about half a mile away from the club, and we've had a couple of other shooting incidents.
Yeah.
So it's a real spot for the police to want to deal with. And the police came to us and said, look, Proceeds of Crime Act, and anyone who runs any boxing clubs who's listening to this, or anyone who runs any sporting or any activity that helps with kids or helps with this type of thing, it's worth getting in touch with your local police force, because the Proceeds of Crime Act is where they take money off gangsters or drug dealers or whatever else and make it available. So we put together a bid. We got some architectural drawings done, and then did a Dragon's Den style thing in front of the chief constable. And again, this is where my day job, my professional life helps, because I'm really quite comfortable doing presentations and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we as a group of coaches, we've secured £50,000 to build these extensions. Now, the thing about a boxing club, everyone might say, oh, well, what equipment is in there? Well, how big's the ring, and how many bags have you got, and what's style of bag? Most boxing clubs, what we crave is floor space. Because, our gym can handle probably 30 to 50 kids a night. With the extensions that we're doing, that's going to go to from 70 to 90 kids a night, and we can promote and we can get them in. And we've got 8 coaches now, and we can work on that. And we've got a vision. So what we want within 5 years, we want a permanent female boxing team of at least 5 female boxers.
Yeah.
So we want to take measures to get the girls involved. We want to have we want to have a GB representative. We want that to be our standard operating expectations, that we have at least a GB boxer in our squad, at least one. And we want to have at least 2 national champions. We've set that as a 5-year vision. The club, then, we can create an environment to engender that, to get that going. You always work the long game with young boxers, and you seek to build them gradually over years. Mm-hmm. And as part of that, then, the community benefits. We want to open the place up of a day. We want it to be a hub for the community, and that's our focus. And it's a huge ask of all of us, but we're getting it done. We're organising, and we're making it work, and we're getting support. And so great credit to Merseyside Police and other bodies who are coming together to support us. As for myboxingcoach.com, so I have 2 training systems out there. Interestingly, we talked about productivity before. I have another training system that isn't on public release, and this is me being the anal boxing coach that I am.
Yeah.
It's called My Boxing Coach Monthly, and I know I could just put it on general release, and it's a monthly subscription that runs for 2 years, and I know that people would sign up, and I know that I'd make a ton of money, or not a ton of money, but I'd probably make more money doing that. However, I believe that people come and they do my boxing training foundation course, that's the basics. The basics never let you down.
Yeah.
90% of what the top operators do are the basics. They just do them extremely well. So
Yeah.
I will never, ever apologise for re-drilling, jabs, backhands, simple movements, all of that stuff. And that training system teaches the basics of a gym session and the basics of the boxing style. Then I have another one called close range fight control. That's all about close range boxing is a much more complex and risky undertaking. So there's a lot more involved. You have less time. You have to be more proactive. There's all kinds of variables that are beyond your control. So I only offer my monthly model to people who've already done them. It's a bit of I know it sounds a bit weird, but for the last 22 months, I've been producing 8 videos at least per month.
Yeah.
And 4 or 5 audio training companions every month.
Yeah.
So getting that done, getting the shoots done, getting
it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
It is. But it's something that I believe can give people ongoing inspiration. We do motivational stuff in it. In the last one, I even ended up talking about Gene Kranz and Apollo 1, the Fatal Fire on the Apollo program. There's all, I think there's lessons everywhere in life that you can take. So I hope to continue with my boxing coach. I hope that it will allow me to give up the day job, because as lucky as I am to have the day job I've got, I don't hate it, I don't like it, and this sounds terrible, but I feel nothing. I'm committed to doing a good job for them, because the taxpayer pays me wages, and I think that's really important. But I'm grateful that I'm able to have the job and build the business gradually. This is the wonderful thing about the internet. Like 10 years ago or more, traditionally someone like me could never start a business, if you like, because you needed capital, you needed, materials, you needed funding. You don't need that now. Anyone can do what I'm doing. Anyone can do it. You need a passion, you need some knowledge, and you need the will and the desire to keep on building and keep laying brick on brick on brick. It's like no age ever, I think, the internet now. If someone like me, who's not particularly, got a huge amount of business acumen, I just care about trying to help people and trying to make things happen for people.
Yeah.
The internet is unreal. Yeah, so it's anyone can do this, and at some point, I hope that, I don't hope, I know it's going to happen, to be honest with you, Cal. I'm going to make my boxing coach base the central thing that supports me and my family, and that will then allow me to do more of my voluntary stuff of a day.
Mate, good.
To help more in and around the community. That's the objective.
I love it, mate. So much positive stuff there. You got so much passion. I mean, I love your videos personally. I mean, you learn so much. Your delivery is so good and so precise.
Oh, thank you.
The way you break it down. So don't. I mean, there's no way. I can tell by the way you're talking. You're not gonna stop and give up on it, because you've got a great business there, and your passion shines through so much. Just good luck to you, mate, and just keep it going, because I think what you're doing is amazing. So it's amazing, Fran. Really, really good. So at the end of each podcast, I always ask the guest like these 3 areas of inspiration. So a book that they've read that they would sort of recommend to others, something I've watched, so like a movie or a documentary, and then a person that's inspired you in your life to finish. So if we start with a book, very difficult, and narrowing it down to one, but do you have a particular book that you'd recommend?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna break your rules, and I'm just gonna hit you with 2, but one in particular. One's got, and no one will have heard of this book. It's called The Laws of Lifetime Growth, and it's by a guy called Dan Sullivan and a lady called Catherine Nomura, I think her name is. So The Laws of Lifetime Growth by Dan Sullivan. And in that book, it just gives you 10 laws, and if you try and implement these laws, it's a really easily readable book. It's very pithy and short and punchy, and lots of, you can pick it up, have a little read and get something from it. And it's things like always make your future bigger than your past. So don't dwell on what's gone on in the past. Learn, but move on. Don't live in the past, because that's no future living in the past.
Yeah.
And there's other things. It's just this concept of always make your performance greater than your reward. So if you aim to make the very best performance, then the rewards will follow naturally. But if you aim to perform the very best you can, it's a remarkable book, and it's one that I have on my desk all the time, and I always open it and flip it open. There's another one called The War of Art by a guy called Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah.
And this one is about it's about resistance, and it's about how we will always our natural inclination is to find reasons not to do stuff ultimately.
Yeah.
Creativity wise, and even in productivity wise, we will always find reasons not to do something. That little devil on our shoulder saying, "Oh no, don't get off the couch. Everything's fine. You can do it tomorrow. It'll be fine. Don't worry."
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant book for bringing that really into focus and being able to recognise when you are putting barriers in front of yourself and being able to get rid of those barriers. So,
awesome.
so there's.
Cool.
I'm sorry that I broke you.
No, two great books, definitely, both different as well. So yeah. Movie or a documentary?
Right. Something I've watched recently. Again, Okay, so the one that I've watched recently that really impacted me was Hidden Figures, about Catherine Goebel. She's a mathematician, physicist, one of a group of African American physicists in NASA in the early 60s, who were just unbelievably brilliant and who toiled tirelessly, really inspirational people. That's one I've watched recently. Another one that I think is, that without getting too sort of dark, I think it helps me once a year to watch Schindler's List, because it allows me it reminds me of what we are capable of.
Yeah.
At both ends of the spectrum, that we are capable of being horrendously cruel and unkind to our fellow human beings, and we should do everything we can to be aware of that and nip it in the bud. But also we can be hugely inspirational and kind and seek ways of getting people out of situations. So that's something that I think I like to watch at least once a year, just to bring me down to earth.
Okay. And a person that's inspired you in your life, which can be equally as difficult because different people come into our life at different times. But have you got a particular person?
So in sort of my own personal life, I'm inspired every day by my family, my wife, my kids. That's a bit of a couple, but there were always three wise men in my life. Two of them have gone now. My dad's still with me. Yeah. My dad, my granddad, Jerry O'Hagan, and my uncle Jimmy Howard. And these three men were like the three wise men. Yeah. And regardless of what went on, and they always supported me throughout my boxing life. And they always, I always say to myself, whenever I've got decisions to make, I always think, what would my granddad do in this situation? How would my fella look at this? How would my dad look at this? How would my uncle Jimmy deal with this? And these are often decisions that relate to looking after people and trying to help people, and so they're the inspirations in life. Another one, I just finished reading a book about Ernest Shackleton, the Antarctic explorer. I think we should all, regardless of whether we lead people or not, I think learning and understanding great leadership skills, I think, can help you personally as an individual. Yeah. And another guy, this is me, from a very early age, my son, when he first started showing an admiration for Bear Grylls, I quickly snuffed that out and introduced him to Ray Mears. So whereas Bear Grylls will have you, eating slugs and sifting through bear poo to find nuts.
Ray Mears will look after you.
Ray Mears will knock together a small village for you, he'll carve you a spoon, and you'll have a 3-course meal before sundown. And he'll do it all without breaking sweat. Whereas Bear Grylls will have you jumping off waterfalls, fearful of being caught by some imaginary chasing party.
Yeah, Ray will make things nice and comfy for you. He'll be well looked after. You'll have a lovely time.
Yeah, he's a top man. Yeah, so there you go. But and
Awesome.
even on the movie thing, podcasts are a huge part of my
Yeah.
life now, and I listen to yours quite regularly now. Dig back, and I look forward to the next ones that come out after me. I
Yeah.
won't be
Thank
listening
you.
to myself, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there's other podcasts that I jump right into, from the humorous stuff right the way through to the technical learning and the
Yeah.
motivational stuff.
Awesome, mate. Fran, just to echo what I said earlier, good luck with everything because, you've got a great, business. You've got a great future planned out, and I know you're going to be successful and hit your goals because, you're passionate, you're driven, and it's just been a real pleasure talking to you. I know you're a busy guy. You got some long hours, but I really appreciate you coming on here and talking about your life experiences and your knowledge and your passion, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, mate, listen, the pleasure is all mine. As I said, I think when you first asked me, I didn't know whether you'd got the wrong guy. I just hope that I know we've spoken for quite a while, and the way I work with podcasts, if I can come away from a podcast and I've made one little note of one little thing in the little notebook, that's been worth it. And I hope that people can, some of those folks who are listening to your very worthy podcast pick something up, and the pleasure's been all mine, mate. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Cool. Thanks very much, mate. I appreciate it. Thank you, Fran.
Go easy, Cal. Speak soon, mate.
Cheers, mate. Cool, guys. I hope you enjoyed that great episode, and I'll catch you on the next one.